How you going, people? It's your old mate Father Simon coming to you from the Triumph Bar&Brewery. It's pushing towards beer o'clock on a Wednesday arvo and I'm tonguing for a drink, so let's knock this over, shall we? Hebrews chapter 2 from verse 14. How about this for some wisdom at a time like this? Since therefore the children share flesh and blood, he himself, that's Jesus, likewise shared the same thing, so that through death he might destroy the one who has the power of death, that is the devil, and free those who all their lives long were held in slavery by the fear of death. For it is clear that he did not come to help angels but the descendants of Abraham. Therefore he had to become like his brothers and sisters in every respect, so that he might be a merciful and faithful high priest in the service of God, to make a sacrifice of atonement for the sins of the people. Because he himself was tested by what he suffered, he is able to help those who are being tested. And that's you, folks. You're being tested at the moment. And our whole society is being held in the grip of fear because death has a power over us like nothing else. We're all afraid because we don't want to die. I don't want to be hurtful or trivial, folks, but I'm going to be blunt. We're all going to die. Whether it's from coronavirus, whether I get backed over in my driveway by accident or run over by a bus in the street, or I drink too much soft drink and eat too much takeaway and I check out from a heart attack, or I die of a good old age with a head full of white hair tucked up in my bed, surrounded by my best mates and family, having lived a good life honouring Jesus. We're all going to check out. We're all going to snuff it, croak it, kick the bucket, whatever you want to call it, we're all going to die. But there's one who's gone before us, who did the hard yards. Think about Jesus. He didn't want to die. He wasn't a lemming running towards the cliff, happy to jump off. He sweated blood before he died, praying that the cup might pass from him, but he said, not my will, but yours be done. His death didn't tickle in any way, not when it comes down to this stuff. But he trusted his life and his death to his Father, and he punched through death and punched through that fear and came out the other side. The fear of death and its power over us has led the human race to do and say all manner of evil and selfish things. Look at our society now. People are afraid, and it's leading them to do a whole range of different things that they wouldn't have considered a few weeks ago. This message isn't for the world, though. This is for you, my brothers and sisters, who trust in Jesus. I know a lot of yous are fearful and anxious at this time. And fear and anxiety aren't wrong feelings because they're feelings. It's how God has made you to be. You react to the circumstances around you. But the scriptures that we've heard today are saying this: they don't have to own you. They don't have to have power over you. They don't have to have an impact on the decisions you make, the direction you take, or the things you say and do to others. Because you're not a slave anymore. In Jesus, you've been set free. Let that own you today. Let him break through your fear today and draw you to the fullness of life he has for you. The people who wrote these words, they weren't foolish or insane, but they faced the threat of death themselves. The writer of the Hebrews elsewhere says that people are kicking in their doors and dragging people off for their faith in Jesus. And with that comes the threat of death. But they weren't afraid. And they weren't afraid to write these things. Why? Because they had seen Jesus for themselves. seen him resurrected from the dead in all his glory. And they got to touch him with their own hands and eat with him and hang out with him, because they saw the hope of the human race in flesh and blood raised from the dead. It made them utterly fearless and led them to do all manner of astonishing and daring and outrageous things. Their actions upended an entire civilization. And you and I can sit here talking about these things today because they punched through their fear following Jesus, and they came out the other side, and they had abundant life, even with the threat of death hanging over their heads. You and I can follow the same path. Jesus says to you today, do not be afraid, for I died and rose again. Do not be afraid, because you are my brother and sister. Because I was tested in the way you are, I can pull you through and out to the other side. Do not be afraid, Jesus says to you today, because I will be with you always to the end of the age. Let's knock off and have a drink and talk about these things. I'll catch you next time. Cheers.